I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com, and today we're going to install a set of Vortex V3 2.0 rear sets. These are adjustable now on the 2015 through 2018 Yamaha R1. Okay, this is the second version rear set Vortex has released for the R1. The first one, which was a great seller, it's a great kit, I rode on those for quite a long time, was a fixed version. They put the pegs in just the right spot, and I gotta tell you, I really liked riding on them. Great quality, as always. Since they introduced that kit, they had come up with an all-new rear set design, right? And it's this foot peg adjustment piece here. We're gonna talk quite a bit about this in a moment before we even get into the install. The R1 is such a significant bike. This is a great bike, super popular, sell a ton of stuff for it. They decided to go backwards and take this new design and integrate it into the rear set kit for this bike. And what you end up with is you end up with 17 mil up or down, 23 mil forward or rearward. That is a ton, okay? The real key feature to this is the amount of adjustability that's available, and the best way for me to show you this is going to be to disassemble just a little bit. Let's start up here at the new foot peg design. We're going to remove a little finishing cap here. Before you go to make your adjustments, it's not a bad idea to loosen the foot peg up a little bit, like so. It's going to allow you to spin that fastener that's kind of captured below it. That was a 6 mil T-handle. Got a 5 here, 13 wrench. There is a backup nut here. It's a locking nut, 13 millimeter. On the shift side, it's really easy to access this all on the bike. And for our purposes right now, I'm just going to pull it apart so I can really show you how this works. 2 mounting holes, one towards the front, one towards the rear. Here is the bracket, and you can see it has adjustment marks as you rotate it. So you're able to easily keep track of where it's at. You'll see this bracket is slotted. So it's going to slide right in here. It locks in place, so it cannot turn. Obviously, you want the one to be located right there, so you're able to, from that position, determine where you want it. Now let's talk about stock foot peg position. The instructions in exploded view show that if you're using the rearward most hole, this would be your OEM foot peg position. If you want to use the forward most, slide that forward. Get that on number 1. There is your OE position, and you're able to adjust as needed from there. The best way to do this is going to be to get your riding boots, the boots you will wear when riding this bike, and dial everything in. Do that before your first ride to make sure that the ergos of the bike are going to suit you well. You don't get yourself into any trouble while you're out there. Thread locker is a good idea. You could use that after you make an adjustment so you get yourself in a position where you know it's probably going to stay there or very close. You're not forever pulling it apart, putting more thread locker on it. You don't need to worry about that with this nut because there is locking nylon on there to hold that in a position, but for the foot peg itself, it would be a good idea to have thread locker on there. So for me, what's going to be the best position? Remember, we have a ton of adjustability here too with our toe piece, which I'm going to show you. I want to get a good baseline to start off with. Probably raise 1 click right there. And we want to make sure that we have mirror image on the other side, of course, before we take the bike out for that first ride. Get your washer back in position, your nut, lock it down. So it's kind of cool that you're able to actually begin with an understanding of where that OE position is and build from that. So if you've ridden the bike with the stock rear sets on it enough to know, you know what, I'm dragging toes in this corner, that corner, I could use more ground clearance, raise them up. If you haven't been dragging anything and you like the position, you can mimic the position. You can even lower it a bit, which you can't do very often with most kits that are out there. Don't forget to tighten up your foot peg. Then throw the plug back in. Now let's talk about the toe piece. This is the same on each side, okay? Just like we did with the foot peg, I'm going to pull this apart so you can have a look at it and see what I'm talking about. Have a real good view of it. Okay, we've got a cam here. See, there's a groove cut in it, so it'll be captured by the bolt, so it can't, if this comes a little bit loose, this can't fall out on the track or the street. That'd be a disaster. Begin by deciding which location is going to best suit you. The one in the rear, one in the front, and look at the amount of adjustability from here. And there's just so many places to go with this. And what's cool is you'll be able to make finite adjustments here without touching your shift rod. Because remember, that 90-degree relationship between the knuckle, the rod, and the shift lever, those are super important. Okay, so this allows you to dial some of that in without touching that. So if we're talking just little moves, you can do all that right here. Another feature with this kit that I really like is they include a bracket that allows you to eliminate your kickstand bracket. This is a race bike, and I took the kickstand off about 3 years back now. The whole time I'd been running the stock bracket that has some external bosses off of it, the pin for the kickstand, that stuff was all still there and just kind of clunky and in the way. This allows you to clean that up. Also, if it's a street bike, you're still riding on the street, you're still using your kickstand, all you do is leave the stock bracket in place. Onto the brake side, just the cliff notes here, okay? Comes with the exhaust bracket, super bitchin'. It's modular. If you don't need to use it, if you have a different system than I do, you don't have a mount back here, you can leave the bracket off. Heel guards are included. Same adjustability here with the toe peg and the toe piece for the brake. I really like this kit. I have not ridden on this kit. I rode on the other kit and I've ridden on all the other kits on the bike. I like how complete this is. I think it deserved the redesign, and this is probably going to be one of the most popular kits out there for the R1 moving forward. If you want to see what it took to get them installed, just keep watching. Okay, first, let's take a look at the instructions that come with this. This is the brake side. These rear sets offer tremendous adjustment. They show you where you can locate the foot peg to get that OEM position if you want it, and then you can work from there. End of the day, the full range is 17 mil up or down with 23 millimeters forward or back. That is a tremendous amount. Brand new design here. We've already had Vortex rear sets on this bike before. It was their fixed version. Those were cool. These are adjustable, and that's a feature a lot of people did want. You look through this, we have exploded views for the exhaust bracket here, right? If you have an exhaust system that requires the bracket, they supply it. If you have one that does not use it, you don't have to put it on, so you have that free space. Exploded view for the rear set itself, and then of course for the brake pedal. We're going to begin by installing the brake pedal to the rear set bracket. It's important that you lubricate the pivot bolt for the brake, as well as the shift pedal. We'll show you that when we're on the other side. See, I'm just using an old screwdriver here, the blunt tip. Thin film is really all that you need. Just a little bit of standard multi-purpose grease is what I'm using. They supply the hardware to mount the brake pedal to the rear set bracket. There's a washer that's going to go in between. Get the fastener through there. Washer in place. This is a good place to use some thread locker. I'm going to go with blue. If this is a street bike for and you're going to have it in a together state for extended periods of time, remember this is a race bike, it'll be taken apart again. Then go with red. But for our purpose, the blue is going to work just right. Okay, now we're ready to come over to the motorcycle. At this point, we're going to install the clevis for the rear master onto the new brake pedal. You may need to adjust this after. We'll deal with that once we have the rear sets mounted. I'm just cleaning the old grease off. This is also a point where it should have a little bit of lubrication. I'm going to put some inside there, okay? And then it's not a bad idea to have just a thin film because there is a little bit of friction there. We'll reuse our OEM hardware here. Push the pin through. This allows you to rotate it out now. We're going to reuse this cotter pin. This cotter pin has lived through, I think, 5 or 6 different sets of rear sets at this point. This thing's kind of worn out. You damage yours, you can find these at any local hardware store real easy. I've also used safety wire in a pinch. Let's go ahead and bend the ears of the cotter pin around, secure that, like so. I'll be able to mock that up to the motorcycle. Okay, I've got the brake pedal and the rear master cylinder attached. Before we go any further, what I want to do is I want to decide where do I want my foot peg to be. There is a ton of adjustment like we talked about earlier. Right now is a good time to decide, do I want the foot peg to be more forward or do I want to be able to take advantage of more of the rearward adjustment? For me, I wear a size 12 US. I like the pegs to be back a little bit, so I'm going to use the rearward hole. If I want full OEM peg position, I would then need to rotate this forward. And we'll talk about that in another minute. But now, I want to show you how to get these on the bike so you're able to still adjust this. You can see I've got the foot peg bracket mounted. I've got the bolt, the washer. Here's the nylock nut. I'm going to start this just by hand and leave it loose, like so. From here, we can install the bracket on the motorcycle. Okay, I've got a little bit of blue thread locker on the bolts. These are supplied fasteners for the bracket to frame mount. If you prefer to use a torque wrench, they have the specs included. Go ahead and grab your torque wrench and get ready. Still, once again, start them finger tight, just like that. And both even before you put any torque to them. Like so. Nice and flush. Now, we can talk about the foot peg. By leaving that loose, that's going to allow me to rotate. That would be my OE position right there. This will be only back. And if I want to go back and up just a bit, we can rotate right there. So there are several options. Realistically, you're going to need to get the bike put together and take it out and ride it to understand what's going to be best for you. Now you can see right here with that exhaust bracket, before we tighten this up, I'm going to want to manage that. So let's get our exhaust bracket, because I need it with the Acro exhaust I have on this bike. This bracket allows you to reuse the stock grommet and top hat spacer. So we're going to go ahead and install those. Just pushes right in there, like so. This in there like that. So we're using all the stock hardware with the exception of the mounting bolts. Now for these mounting bolts, we will absolutely be using some thread locker. A bit of thread locker here is not a bad idea. We'll torque this all the way down. Okay. Also, a good time to make sure that you've got your brake pedal torqued. That's good right there. Still nice and free. Okay, now let's get back to our foot peg. Where do I want to put this? Okay, that's OE, height, but further back. I'm going to raise it to this position right here. Got a 5mm T-handle, 13mm wrench. Remember, that's not going to thread down super easy because we have a locking nut. That's what Vortex is supplied. They do not want that to come loose. Go ahead and torque that. Now you have the peg itself. The peg itself is independent of that bracket. Okay, give you an idea of what that looks like. Absolutely, this is a great place for some thread locker here, okay? Your call if you want to use blue or red. I do believe they are recommending red. Stuff can be a little harder to get apart. So I've chosen to go with blue. Foot peg is now torqued down. It comes with a nice finishing cap. Right here you can see it actually has an O-ring in there. Like so. So nice finished product. Now we have our toe piece. This is a new design as well. No more folding toe piece. Okay, they've done away with that. And now what we have is we have a lot more adjustability. Let me just get this bad boy out of here real quick. So I want to show you something, how they have it captured. This is important. You can see the groove in the bracket interacts with the bolt, so that even if the bolt is coming loose, it won't just pull out, okay? You can see it's going to be captured in there, which is good. Now, the way they've designed this as well, you can see there's going to be a lot of clamping force. You want to be careful with this fastener here. You don't want to crank on this too much. Absolutely use a little bit of thread locker here, okay? And then get it into position and put reasonable torque on it. You're probably going to adjust this as time goes on. It might not even be a bad idea to first identify the position you want to ride with it in. Once you've done that, then disassemble and put some thread locker in just to ensure it's going to stay there for you. While you're at it, let's take and double check the torque on the toe piece itself. And that feels good. You're able to install it in the forwardmost hole or in the rearwardmost, whatever works best for you. Okay, and look at all the adjustment here. There is a ton of adjustment available. I'm going to go right here. I'll come back and torque this once I adjust the rear sets using a standard Allen wrench, just a 90 degree. You're going to be able to get at that a whole bunch better. Okay, now the last part for the brake side is going to be the heel guard. It comes complete with the heel guard. These fasteners were included and they will thread into the brake master cylinder. We're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these and we'll push the master into position. Before you torque them, make sure they're down even. These are not huge fasteners, so they don't need a ton of torque, okay? Main thing is to make sure they are even, and you've got your thread locker in there, like so. So there you have it. Here is the brake side. Remember, before I ride this bike, I'm going to put on the boots I would normally wear when riding this motorcycle. And I'm gonna jump on it, and I'm gonna dial in the ergos to make sure everything feels good before I take it out. Okay, just like on the brake side, we've got exploded views. We have the same amount of adjustment for the foot peg too, 17 mil up or down, 23 mil forward or back, and it shows you where the OE position is. One thing that is unique with this kit that I think is super badass, it allows you, if you choose to now, to remove the kickstand bracket on a race bike. And we're gonna show you the comparison here before we install this. Okay, this is race bike only, so if you're gonna take your kickstand off, which I did quite a long time ago now, you're left with this bracket. And I've been using this with all the other rear set kits I've installed on the bike. And you know what, it did just fine for sure, but you know, it's just, you're not using this and it's hanging out here, you're not using this and it's hanging out there. A couple of times I thought about cutting it down. There's the pin for the kickstand. Well, now you can replace this with this, just a whole bunch cleaner. All right, once again, if you're gonna do a street bike, no problem. You'll just leave your kickstand on and you're gonna use the mounting hole right here for the shift pedal. First thing I'm gonna do is install this bracket, and I'm gonna use red here. These are big fasteners. These are the OE fasteners that we're holding the kickstand bracket on. Before we removed it, we're just reusing those. I wanna make sure, because there's really no reason to ever have to pull this thing off again. I wanna make sure they're not gonna loosen up. And we're gonna torque these bad boys down. Get them even, and I'm going to go ahead and get after them with a ratchet to finish them up. Next up, we're going to install the bracket on the frame, just like we did on the other side. Before we do that, go ahead and get our foot peg started. It just makes things easier. Be sure to use the same position you did on the side you installed first. And we're on number 2. Washer, lock nut. Put a little bit of thread locker on the supplied fasteners to mount this to the frame. This kit will allow you to do standard or reverse shifting. My bike is already set up with GP shift, so I'm going to move that forward. With this kit as well. Now we'll come over to our foot peg. We've got a 5 mil and a 13 wrench. Now to the foot peg. Give you a look at this. Hollow design. 2 stages of knurling. Definitely all new for Vortex. Pretty cool stuff. Go ahead and throw a little Loctite on this. Torque that down. Install the little finishing cap. The heel guard is included, which is a nice touch. This is a really complete kit. It's not very often you'll see a company that already has a rear set kit for a model that's been out. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the R1 was introduced in 15, right? So this Spike's been out for a few years, still super popular, very successful, without a doubt. But it's not very often you'll see a company go backwards and take, and let me tell you, those other ones sold really well. It's a good kit of rear sets, and redesign them. But Vortex felt that what they were doing was significant enough that it merited redesigning the kit for the R1. And after having a chance to handle and now install them, I like how complete it is. I'm really pumped about that shift bracket mount there. Okay, now, these do come with the Heim joint. The setup I've got on the bike right now, okay, I don't need that Heim joint. I've already got one on there. You can see I've got the auto blip from Flash Tune installed in this. So it's clutchless downshifting, right? Obviously clutchless upshifting. And for the GP shift, I have my shift knuckle positioned in such a way that I do not need to use the rearward hole on the shift lever. I'm able to still use the forward hole. I rotated the knuckle. If you want to leave your shift knuckle in the stock position, you could use the rearward hole that they provided on the shift pedal. Okay? Standard would be here, if this is in the stock position, and GP would be back here. For what I'm doing, and the way I've got the bike set up right now, we're just going to stick with what's there. I'm going to go ahead and take the hardware off. We will use the hardware, but not the Heim joint. Okay, now it's time to install the shift pedal. A little bit of lubrication here in the bearings. The supplied bolt. There's a washer that can go on the back side. This is not a bad place to use some thread locker, clean the grease off. And then it's going to go right here in that bracket. Run it down by hand first. Snug it up. Bearing feels nice and tight. I like that. Torque good here. Make sure this moves really smooth, okay? Which it does. That's just right. Bolt, the nylock nut. I've got my bodywork loosened up here. It's going to allow me to get this in there. Depending on what bodywork you're running, you may need to pull the panel off to get this part done. Slide that through. Lock nut on the back side. Remember, the nylon always goes outside, okay? So the threads first without any nylock, and then once it seats, you won't be able to run it down anymore by hand. Get your backup wrench. Got your T-handle here. torque this down. Put the protective boot back over. Just like on the brake side, the shift pedal tip is adjustable, and that is loose right now. I'm going to take the extra time to make sure this has been torqued good from the factory. Just don't want to have any problems with it, right? Things do happen, so take an extra second here to slide this off. And just verify the tip is tight. Okay, we're good to go there. Slide that back in. Remember, once again, I'm not going to put any Loctite here until I know I've got it in the position that I want it to be in. Look at all that adjustability. So without even adjusting the rod at all, you can rotate this thing around a ton and get it in just the right spot for your riding style, which is really cool. We're going to start right about there. And then we're going to talk about one of the most important things to focus on when you're installing a set of rear sets on your bike. It seems trivial on the surface, but man, it has so much to do with how smoothly this bike is going to shift. So I'm just very lightly snugging that up because we're going to adjust all this once I get my boots out. That looks like it could be a little far right now, but we'll come back to that later. So, angles between the shift rod and the shift knuckle, and then the shift rod and the shift pedal itself. You want this to be as close to 90 degrees as humanly possible, okay? That gives you the best mechanical advantage. If you have this angle sharper, okay, too sharp or too soft, it's going to have a negative impact on the shifting action on your bike, okay? So what I want you to do when you're adjusting, focus on that angle being the most important thing first, and then adjust from there to get this in the proper position that best suits you. So 90-degree angle here and here first, and then adjust from there to get the tip in just the right position.